Hey everybody, I'm Monji, that's Dan, that's Ryan. We're going to talk about getting started in Warhammer, Wargaming, and specifically the Age of Darkness today. So, how did you guys start?
Honestly,
Did you start with the big resin Mechanicum? Was that your first models?
I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say that, but I can't. It would have saved me a lot of money trying to find like the perfect army over the course of like 10 years. But, no. I got started when a couple of friends of mine were really into Warhammer. And I was like, what are these cool miniatures? And being the dweeb that I am, I picked up like a shoebox full of hand-me-down, like trust fund, like, here you go, here's an army, enjoy. Nice. So, it's hard to say no to free stuff, which has been like the motto of my life. And so I ended up with a small Chaos Marine faction, and then I progressed into Necrons because I thought those were cool and would paint up easy. I was wrong. And then I spent the last 10 years basically skirting like everything that's Mechanicum. So I'm a huge Mechanicum fan. I got a Skitarii army. I have Titans. I got Knights. I got Iron Hands because everyone in 8th edition had Iron Hands.
Everyone was real big fans of Iron Hands in 8th edition. I remember that.
Yeah, a lot of scumbags ran Iron Hands.
It was a pretty scumbag army.
Yeah, myself included. Yeah. So that's more or less how I got started. And I think the lesson there is it is a hobby that you can take as far and wide as you want to go. And I think that's really what attracted me to it. You have the lore, you have the models, you have the hobby aspect, you have the game aspect, and of course the community. And, the long short of it is I moved to Austin in 2013, and I didn't have a whole lot of friends and, like, connections and communities here. So I picked up the game again kind of in my like, late 20s and ended up finding a really cool community here and a bunch of nice people. So it was a way for me to, like, make friends and, like, get to know some people.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, you and I started about the same time looking at that White Dwarf.
Yeah. I bought that White Dwarf at an LGS in, what is that issue? I think this is, what does it say up at the top? March of, I believe this is 99.
Is that purchase number 1?
I'm pretty sure this is purchase number 1, and I think 228 came later when I was trying to buy a back issue and deciding if I was going to, what color I was going to paint my delicious Space Marines.
Okay,
right? Yeah.
Delicious.
And then proceeded, so my infatuation with miniatures actually stems from family history. My dad was a model maker for NASA. Before 3D CAD was a thing.
Oh, wow.
He was actually in the model making division of NASA. So if you ever see some stock photos of like senators standing next to their hard-earned tax dollars spent on something, and it's like they got a miniature standing right in front of them, right? And they're like Skylab.
Dan's dad.
My dad was part of the group that built that scale model of Skylab.
Okay.
So I've got
awesome.
I got a lot of model making in my genes, and I ended up at a LGS sometime around 1998 because I too am a self-committed nerd, and and was probably getting into magic or something like that at the time. Nerd. And I walk in, and lo and behold, there's the uber nerds at some 6x4 table playing 2nd edition 40K, like a 2v2, like 4 corners battle royale. And I probably sat there and watched it for like 20 minutes, and I knew what my lifelong obsession was going to be.
Plastic crack.
Plastic.
Right to the vein. My first game was two guys playing like 20,000 points, and then I had like my 500 points of like Necrons or Chaos Space Marines. I can't even remember what it was. And then like a bunch of pie plates came down. I'm just like, well, I'm going to Del Taco now, and I'll see you guys when you call me 3 days from now when you finish up.
Del Taco.
Yeah.
So I got bit by the bug, and I know we've been talking about it earlier, but so I bought a 2nd edition starter box, like, I swear to God, the month before the 3rd edition starter box came out. I split the 2nd edition starter box with a buddy, and I had the Space Marines, and he took the Orcs, and then he didn't want to keep playing Warhammer because he was a RPG guy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I associate with those people.
You know them. Yeah. Anyway, and
Talking about guys who buy a lot of models.
yeah,
D&D players.
Jesus,
Man.
you should see my stepdad's collection. That guy has lead, not even pewter. They just like straight up tell you white metal. That's lead, bro. Like,
Well, when the apocalypse comes,
yeah. But no,
Melts
he's
down.
got like a bunch of like legit old school, like the original boxes, the Ral Partha, like old D&D stuff.
Yeah.
Man. But yeah, so I always, at the very beginning, I always struggled finding the right community, or the LGS was nowhere near my house. So, conning your parents into driving you.
yeah,
And I grew up in Houston. So please, Dad, drive me 12 miles to the local
around the whole
and
wagon
leave
wheel.
me
Yeah.
there for hours. That wasn't going to work. So I had a really hard time getting into a community or a group. And then the game store that was up there that I started having better access to, started playing more games, got really big into 3rd edition 40K, got into 4th, was playing Space Marines the whole time.
As many Warhammer players do.
As many do.
I mean,
right?
that does seem to be the go-to for almost every single new player, right?
Well, I mean, it's not just the poster child. They look cool, right? Like,
Yeah, generally they look cool. They're kind of a balanced army that is both good in shooting and close combat, and they're okay at everything. And I think that's the draw. And also they paint up easy. Like
power armor
Oh,
paints
I
up
don't know
real
about
nice.
that.
I don't know,
at
man.
all.
Like some of my first work is it doesn't look horrible, but it's like you can just get away with dry brush and be table ready in like a weekend.
Oh, so you knew what dry brushing was when you started. That's a big advantage right there. That's
Yeah, who went to art school?
yeah, that's cheating.
Art school. Well, this is the time before YouTube and all of the like excellent content that's out there on the web today,
Yeah,
excluding this show. So,
woof, woof. Yeah, if you want to learn how to
Bold
highlight,
prediction,
don't watch this. It's one of the things that I really like about where the hobby is at now compared to where it was in the late 90s. If you wanted to learn how to paint, you had 3 or 4 pages in a codex. Maybe you'd get something in a White Dwarf once a year, maybe.
Yeah,
Like,
most of the watchers don't know this, but when Warhammer started, the internet hadn't.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
there
that's
was
true.
no.
God, that makes me feel real old now.
Yeah, well, we are, man.
Yeah, God, my back says that too.
I can't help it if we're the generation that gets sexually attracted to the sound of a 56K modem going ding, ding, ding.
I'm not touching that. Is what I'm doing.
Ba-dong, ba-dong, ba-dong.
But it's one of those things where I think when you're starting out with wargaming, or with Warhammer specifically, you really got to think about what you want to get out of it, right? Because to me, there's like 2 aspects to Warhammer.
Let me pause you right there, and we'll
Sure.
circle back to that. Do you think Warhammer or tabletop gaming, not tabletop gaming, do you think Warhammer or like wargaming in general is like the place to start, or do you think the D&D or RPGs or other kind of simpler games are more accessible to people?
I don't think you worry about accessibility. I think you worry about what's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pure flavor
Enthusiasm
thing.
trumps all of that.
100%.
Yeah, there's plenty of guys that I don't even think it's a matter of feasibility. It's like, do you really want to sit down and get into this hobby?
Okay.
Because I think what drives Warhammer more than anything is the hobby, right? I've probably hobbied way more than I've played Warhammer. Not that I'm opposed to playing Warhammer. I'm just really into the hobby.
True. I mean, obviously I'm sitting here painting on my free time with friends. So, I enjoy this just as much as I do in playing the game.
I've done a lot of different hobbies and pastimes. I've done RPGs, I've done LARPing, I've done tabletop wargaming, both historicals and sci-fi with
I know you did
Warhammer.
historicals.
Yeah, that was my gateway. Was my aunt's husband, a guy named Jerry, used to be a painter for Ral Partha. And
nice.
to bring them back, Ral Partha was like one of the original D&D miniatures companies back
Right,
in the day.
Lead.
Again,
nonsense.
white metal.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Lead, pewter. I think you can still find some of their sculptures. They like relaunch themselves.
They're all
a few
over
years ago,
eBay
yeah.
with the old stuff if you want to go look
I wouldn't
at
be
it.
surprised they're like now made in like STL files where you can like.
No,
wouldn't
yeah,
be shocked at all.
there are STL files of the old Ralph Larkin sculpts.
I'm actually shocked there isn't a historical society for the preservation of lead miniatures.
You should be the president.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm with Monji on that. That's a terrible idea.
You know, he came to Warhammer, but he came to it from historical wargaming. So he'd done a lot of like ancients, which are sort of, you know, Roman era, Carthage type stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool.
And American Civil War was really big, and he has models going back to the late '60s.
Nice.
So like some of the original, what we would think of today as tabletop wargaming models, like I've seen them, they're wild. So
This blob looks like an orc.
I mean, it was like this blob sort of has the hat of a British rifleman. So yeah, there we go. That's the.
And you'll notice the smudge at the top of the blob. That is his captain's feather.
It's
That's how you know he's elite.
It's one of those things where I think when you get started out, it really is about what speaks to you. You know, I've seen a lot of people get into Warhammer, not even through the game. You know, they're playing the video games, they're playing the RPGs, they're, you know, watching stuff on YouTube.
You know, it is like one of the more widely, you know, known and accessible IPs, and I think that draws people in too. It has a ton of lore and a ton of history, so
yeah,
you know, it is kind of the poster child for like wargaming in general.
Well, and I think what's nice about very specifically the Warhammer setting, right, is that it's not just that it's accessible, but like when you start off sci-fi and you say like, all right, look, the year's 40,000, like that far in the future? No, like Earth made it to 40,000.
Yeah,
like people get intrigued. Like that's just a heck of a hook.
True, and I mean, you know,
like most fantastical things involve fantastical things, and instead it's like, imagine Earth just, you know, schlupped through it to the year 40,000.
We made it, boys.
Yeah, right. It's like,
I wouldn't say we made it. I don't think that's stretching it.
Sure.
Soylent Green is Skaven. Yeah, like.
But you know, I think
you're lucky if there's meat.
When you get started out, you know, obviously Space Marines are a great place to start, especially in Horus Heresy right now with the Age of Darkness box. Like, if you want to get started, that box is perfect.
If you like Space Marines, that box is perfect.
True. I mean, Age of Darkness does basically for $300 or $250 on eBay or wherever.
Depending on how thrifty you are, yeah.
You know, yeah. So I mean, you can really get an entire army that is, you know, I don't want to say table ready because you got to build it and paint it and all that kind of stuff. But you know, it's everything you need in a box to really get going, and it has the core rules, which is like huge too.
And the templates and scatter die. Can't forget those.
Yeah, that's value right there.
Right.
And whippy sticks.
The whippy sticks are critical to the Horus Heresy experience for sure.
Indeed.
But you know, it's one of those things where I feel like whenever someone asks me, because I you know, people will get directed to me when they're like, I'm thinking about getting into Warhammer. What should I get? Right?
Talk to him.
Right. It is weird being at a store and people are like at the store bring people over to me and ask. But it's
because you're mostly approachable and non-threatening.
Ooh. You know, it's one of those things where like, you know, GW I think has this idea of like where you start, because you get the starter boxes, maybe you get to start collecting and you kind of build up from there. But what I tend to tell people is like, fuck any of that shit. Buy what looks cool. Like, because ultimately, like if you get into this, you're going to spend hours and hours hours.
I think the enthusiasm you do have to be into what you're painting and what you're spending time with. And with the amount of content out there from YouTube and from just online resources, like you can find a guide to paint just about anything.
Oh,
or at
yeah,
least like
for sure.
translate it onto a miniature. And I think that, you know, when you and I were growing up, that didn't exist. It was like some super.
No, man, there were super soldiers that walked into your LGS and they had the coolest armies ever, and you're like, how did you do that? And the guy's like, we have one guy at my LGS.
He didn't just tase you like he did.
No. Everybody else tases me. This guy had explanations. Okay. No. This guy, he was like the LGS I was at, there was a real close, very small military installation. Ellington Field. It's actually the The whole reason it exists is so they can get the space shuttle real close to NASA. And this guy was on stationary, and so he had like a bunch of military background. He took Space Marines and turned them into like a 40K version of 1940s GIs. And he did a killer job of it too. Like every one of them had a helmet. They had chin straps hanging off the helmets.
Oh, that's wild.
They were all military green.
So I don't know, like super GI. Like...
Yeah. But we're talking 1998.
Oh, okay.
We're talking like superhero status. Like, bro, what do you do for a living? Like, how much time did you have? You know, like you didn't. There weren't. YouTube wasn't around. Where'd you get that idea? That's crazy.
How big is your brush? Is it like a quad zero?
I mean, because the closest thing
is it a cat whisker?
Right, like yeah, right.
Look, we didn't even have brush sizes back then. Hold up.
Yeah, no doubt, right? Yeah, brush sizes were for fancy painter types.
You had a large brush and you had a small brush, and that was it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So the secret that I found when I kind of got going in painting is that there were plenty of guides online for things like scale modeling and model trains, and that's where I really got my start. So I mean, if you look at my armies, they're not done in like GW kind of like highlights and
you do some super grimdark wash it out kind of strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that helps me save time too, because I can just like slap oil wash on it. But you know, it's efficient for me, and I'm good at it now. But you know, I got started painting with just like how much oil wash can I put on this, like schlep on this thing, and then like, oh, turpentine takes it off. That's magic, you know. But I mean, I was looking at guides for model trains and model airplanes and scale modeling, and I've even like perused the dollhouse like how-tos. So, you know.
The other thing I would say to people starting now, and this is something that is really important to hear from, I think, anybody who knows how to like paint or hobby.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay when your models look bad. Like everyone's first models look bad.
Like don't expect to like sit down and produce like cover art.
Yeah.
Like it is completely fine to, those models are hundreds of hours and very skilled painters.
Yeah.
Like my stuff is not at that level. So, you know, your stuff is not at that level.
No.
Dan's stuff's not at that level. Like we have live.
My stuff has no level.
Exactly. I mean, dry brush and gray and black, and it looks super tight.
If there was a Legion that was just silver with like two tones, and I know that's Iron Warriors. Don't get me started, but I can't do Hazard Stripes. But that was like my first 40K army, man. Seriously, it was all plastic Marines, and it looked like I had just taken them and dumped them into Mithril silver, and then done like some red highlights on them.
But I mean, the point here is that, you know,
Mithril silver.
The three of us don't have 200 hours to spend on like 5 dudes.
Well, one of my favorite
No, I don't.
One of my favorite videos Games Workshop ever produced, this was around the time 8th edition came out.
Yeah.
They brought on like the heavy metal lead who did like the box, like the brand new Primaris Intercessors at the time.
Yeah.
And they talked about,
I remember that one,
how much time it took them to paint one Primaris Intercessor.
Right.
And one of the like 20 guys in that box was 40 hours of painting.
Yeah.
And
that's like, from a skilled painter.
Right. That is, you know, they hire painters who really know what they're doing, who've been through it, who know all the techniques.
And paint in that style.
Right.
They do not hire someone, you know, like Calvo or, you know,
Juan
Hidalgo or all these like top-notch painters that you actually see in like non-Citadel like miniature magazines. You know, they paint a completely different style that GW doesn't even touch.
You know what painting always sets me off every time I see it? And it's Italian and French battle reps. Have you ever sat down and watched like some Italian or French battle reps from YouTube from content creators? Look at the stuff that they paint.
Huh.
You're like, what is it?
Is
a
it
15th century, like 15th generation model maker? Like, I mean, it looks like Fabergé brought out a Nightheart army. Like,
yeah, but I mean, like, you know, that's, I don't know. Maybe they just care about the arts more in high school.
Right. They got some government system that pays them to stay at home.
But you know, even their first models like don't look good. I look at models that I painted a year ago or 2 years ago, and I go, man, I can do so much more now than I could then. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. Like that's actually the most important part of like the hobby to me. And what's really nice, you know, when when you're kind of an adult or grown up or whatever, your tolerance for failure goes down a lot, right?
Right.
You mess up too many times at your job, you get fired. You know, make mistakes in relationships. You know, things can go real bad. But you know, one of the things that's very freeing about wargaming as a hobby is you have the freedom to make mistakes.
Sure.
Granted, buying new models isn't cheap, but you know, it
is if you're buying the AOD box set.
Oh, product plug.
But
come on down, it's a great hobby.
But yeah, if you have like just some more interest in learning a skill, because that's what it is, like you have the space and the time to do it.
We were talking about this the other day. You know, there is something beautiful about mediocrity and like having a hobby and progressing through it. And I think that, you know, when you think about painting, it is one of those skills that you just build over time. It's not going to come like in a week.
Yeah, nobody's born with, except for those Italians. I'm telling you, man, look that stuff up.
It could be. Nuts. I mean, you know, they did do the Renaissance.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah, they gave us David, Michelangelo. There was a couple other things, highlights.
So we're kind of delving into the painting stuff now, but as far as you know, just achieving painting and putting stuff on the table, like contrast paint, like 2 tones of spray paint, and I mean you can do a lot of magic that you couldn't do 5 years ago.
No, I mean they definitely have brought tech to paint, for sure. I mean they've brought tech to this entire hobby. I was just sitting there thinking about it, like everybody that wants to complain about like mono pose or only 5 guys that pose one way or another, like you ever built a metal model?
Oh yeah.
My God, like
built is a strong word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's yeah. Have you ever pinned and viced a metal model together? I don't know.
This is the time before the WoW stick.
Well, I know, like I knew what cracks.
Product plug.
Send
us a WoW stick.
Send us a WoW stick. Those things are nice. But I was thinking about this. Like I remember how-to guides in White Dwarf. Like just to give you an idea how far and easy it is now to get into the hobby, because they've actually, you know, grown as a company and done that. But like, come on, you remember the deodorant stick land speeder?
Those are the days.
Or like, I remember a guy like
I remember the vehicle design rules from 3rd edition. So
oh my,
where they're like, let's do the deodorant stick land speeder 2.0.
Yeah,
or the looted vehicles where you could just like.
Well, that was an orc thing. I mean,
it was an orc thing,
and it was beautiful,
and it was lore driven. Damn it,
it sure was. So okay, you bought the box, you painted your miniatures, you got a pretty good looking forest on the table, you know, based, battle ready. Let's talk about where do you find a community, and you know, after you find the community, like let's say you want to go to an event, what do you need to do? How do you get started with that?
So I'm maybe like the worst person to answer this question, because like I tend to like play games that don't have existing communities where I'm at, and I just like buy a set and be like, I'm gonna be at the game shop on this day. Come check out the game.
Okay. So you consider yourself kind of like a community organizer or a tournament organizer or event organizer?
Yeah, I mean, I find as I've gotten like older,
I heard trendsetter.
Sure,
trendsetter. I'm not going to go that far. But
Warhammer influencer.
Whoa!
Ooh.
I'll let you know when GW ships any product.
This man rolls a big 6.
Nope.
Not even going to touch that one.
Not even a little bit, no. So, like, for me, you know, you're going to be in a situation where, like, nobody's playing the thing you're into. That's okay. You can go to, you know, hopefully you've got, like, a local game shop, but if you don't, you know, there's clubs at school. Warhammer does their like, school club program. You can get a teacher to, like, sponsor that, which is wild to me. Like, I would have been all over that if that
let's
existed.
Convert them while they're young.
Kid.
I think that's a great idea.
But
you
like,
want to this hit of heroin, kids?
whoa,
no, plastic heroin. It's a whole different thing. Big in China.
Anyway, you know, I find that like I typically end up like running the events, building the scene, being active in social media or on Discord. You know, sort of doing things that make a community sort of happen.
Okay.
Now, I will say social media is a big way to do this now that
Right.
did not exist back in the day.
You basically had to go like find the group playing.
You'd find a flyer somewhere if you were
Right, yeah.
lucky. Like,
kind of sketchy. There's like little pull tabs on it. Someone's also offering guitar lessons.
Nothing like looking into the personals for Warhammer groups.
But I mean, like back in the
Haven't
day,
sunk that far, hoping not to. Sorry, Monji, go ahead.
but back in the day, like you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have Reddit. Like you can go to these sites and look for those communities. You could go to like Reddit r/Warhammer 30K if you're playing Horus Heresy. And
I read it. It's in my feed.
Hey, is anybody in this town playing Warhammer? And you'll get responses. You'll get messages. If you look around on Facebook, a lot of 30K players especially are old. That means they're on Facebook. So, like...
You're not wrong.
Like,
so true.
The most heresy organizing I've seen is all through, like, Facebook groups and stuff like that. And then you do have, like, the bigger events, like the Games Workshop Opens are starting to run Horus Heresy events now, too.
Okay.
Because they're selling product.
So, kind of what I'm hearing, and, I've done this before myself, go to your local FLGS, ask around about groups that play, when they play, approach it that way. And also, of course, attach yourself to some social media for the local area and see if you can find a game.
Nerd 101, go to the Nerd Hangout and ask the nerds what's up.
Not wrong.
I'm just
not wrong. All right, so let's kind of delve into like going to your first event. Let's say you want to go to the Horus Heresy. Nah, we're good.
Okay.
Let's say that we're going to go to a Horus Heresy event, much like Monji just came back from in Chicago. Where do you built your army? You kind of know the rules and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Number one event. First event. What should I expect?
Actually,
what am I looking forward to?
I got a bigger question than any of that because it seems like a very introductory logistics to doing something like that. What did you do to get your army there? Did you drive it yourself, or did you fly it? Did you check it? Did you pray to FedEx gods? What did you do?
So I think I'll talk about kind of like the GW standard, and then I'll talk about like how I got it there, because like transporting fragile resin is definitely a trick, especially when you're.
I don't know what you're talking about.
When your Primarch's whole gimmick is like a bunch of very thin resin wings with one very tiny attachment.
You don't baby Bjorn your.
Oh, you took Korax. Oh God.
I would just break that initially.
Yeah, I was just
glue it when I got it.
Well, you're shipping.
So GW events, they're going to have a link on the Warhammer community site.
Okay.
That'll take you to Eventbrite. Eventbrite is a site that's used for a bunch of events, not just GW stuff, but they do most of their organizing through there. You'll buy your badge there, and they're going to link you to like hotel discounts. I highly encourage. Yes, it's a ton of money. Stay at the hotel the event is at. It's going to save you so much heartache during the event.
No running down the street with your bag of miniatures and then you just like drop it in the gutter. I hear you.
Or trying to find parking downtown in a city somewhere and then hauling your army across.
Yeah, don't do it. Just pony up and pay the money.
Yeah, it was definitely pricey. I'm not going to pretend to anybody that it wasn't, but I thought it was really worth it. So anyway, you get sort of your lodging details, your event details from there, and they're going to tell you like what the event standard is. They're going to have a player pack that will tell you what the expectations were. The big thing for the GW event was there is a paint standard, so all your stuff's got to be painted and based, and it's not like the standard was like somewhere between like battle ready and parade ready. Like they didn't want you to go like the full 9 yards on every model, but they didn't want you to like have the decals on and like go for a look.
Also, just to circle back on the hotel, I've been to some events, and one of the coolest things is just kind of bumping into the people that you play games with, or going to dinner, or going to the bar afterwards, or whatever it is. There's a lot of camaraderie and community there that happens at the hotel that you're not going to find like 5 miles away at a Motel 6.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And Ubering after a night of drunk debauchery with a bunch of Warhammer types is, not advisable.
It's sad.
It's not advisable.
It's sad.
But so you're going to get kind of your event details from there. So the first thing is the paint requirement. The second thing, and I know this is a really big deal to a lot of Heresy gamers, is all conversions must be approved by GW. So with Horus Heresy, there's a lot of units that have rules that don't have models. I was running Raven Guard Deliverers, who are their special Terminators.
Okay.
There's no official models for those dudes.
Yeah.
Mechanicum's
got some, so you're kind of like, what do I do?
Right. So what I did was I converted them up. I took, in my case, it was the Cataphracti kit. I added some stuff from the Primaris Raven Guard upgrades. I kit bashed some weapons together. Like, I made a multi-melta out of the heavy flamer and some cut down melta gun barrels.
We should definitely do a kit bashing episode.
I have so many bits.
I just got new Chinese takeout containers for all the bits I have. That's another story.
Was that a DIY job, or you just like went down?
You just went down to Pagoda Pete's. Like, give
no,
me all the white cups.
I got
take a number 2. You put in dishwasher.
Pro money saving tip: get Chinese takeout. Comes in reusable plastic containers. Wash that, rinse out, get rid of all the stuff, and then you just store all your bits in there. It's real easy.
You're like a frugal gourmet of Warhammer 101. Like, that should be that's a whole sub show. Like, cooking with Monji. I like to save the reused Chinese containers.
I have Chinese takeout containers from, no joke, 1999 that are holding Warhammer bits.
As long as General So's isn't in there from 1999,
you're probably in good shape.
Right, but getting back to kind of the event. So you paint your army up, you convert your models together, and then there's an email in the player pack you send the conversions to. I recommend put the conversions together, then take the pictures of them on your phone and email it before you spend a lot of time on it, just in case you get denied. None of my models got denied.
Or blue tack it.
Whatever suits your fancy. Yeah.
How about this? How about him pointing?
at this point, I'm really concerned G-Dub's over there with a drill, and they're taking scrapings off of it, they're doing a test on the hood of your on the trunk of your miniatures. It's clean. You're good to go.
It's definitely not that intense, but I do get the feeling that if you want to run a fully 3D printed army, that's probably not going to fly.
Right.
But if you want to do some custom bits on top of one of the Mark 6 bodies, I think that's probably going to be more okay.
I was going to say, because don't you have some crazy 3D print jetpacks on all your stuff?
Not all of it. There's a few characters that I have some jetpacks on. There's some, but everything else is actually GW bits. And finding the guns for my Kaide's next conversion was a whole trip. That took a minute. The
kidney missing, firstborn.
But so once I got everything approved, then there came the how do I transport it, right?
Right.
And one of the things about Horus Heresy models, especially the resin units, there's a lot of very thin parts that tend to stick out from the model.
Yep.
And it's been my experience when you put that into foam, you're
breaks.
going to lose fingers, you're going to lose bits of the model just in the transit.
If you want a plastic comparison, transport Night Haunt.
Right.
Night Haunt, I think a lot of the Mechanica stuff is very similar.
Yeah. Every time you look at them
breathe
wrong,
at it, and just one
a mechadendrite just flakes off.
Yeah. I had definitely broken the Belisarius Call axe a couple times. Which is tragic.
I knew my regular foam transport wouldn't work, so I actually got a bunch of magnets from Magnet Baron.
Yep.
They sell magnets that are about as thick as the lip of a GW base is.
Okay.
So it'll sit flush on a table or on a tray. And then I grabbed the Battle Foam magnet rack system.
Yeah.
I've used Battle Foam for a while. It went really well for me. They actually survived transit, carrying to and from the event, going through TSA security. Everything was fine until I got off the plane on my return trip to Austin and it flipped over. And even then, Corax didn't move. None of I had about 6 or 7 models had some parts break. Took me about 10 minutes to fix.
That's why you buy good magnets.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I highly recommend the Magnet Baron stuff.
Get those N52s.
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend these magnets for what it's worth.
Neodymium magnets.
Neodymium.
Unless they got thin ankles and you just rip the.
Oh well. Oh yes. All on Night Haunt.
It's definitely a thing when you're transporting your army to and from events. You're going to have spent lots of time on the army.
Yeah.
Don't sort of cheap out if you can. Like, make sure that you've got something that'll be nice and stable. For what it's worth, I'm planning on going to Adepticon next year. That's in Chicago. We're in Austin. I'm going to drive that because I'm not going to trust like my Thunderhawk gunship on a TSA like scanner. Like, that's not how that's going to go.
You mean you're not going to get the Pelican case and like do it up military style, the full deployment?
I mean, it's in a case that looks an awful lot like a giant gun case. So no, that is not going through a TSA scanner. Like, that'll be I land in Chicago and somehow my Thunderhawk got lost. Like, nope. Mm-mm.
That's going to be a real strange experience at the local pawn shop when they got to try to sell it. Anyways, so let's talk about just kind of the event in general. You know, what to expect from the missions and kind of how the event runs.
Yeah. So there were about 7 players. Split between like loyalists and traitors, as you do at Heresy events. Weirdly, there were more loyalists than traitors. It's much more common that you're going to see more traitor players than loyalist players at a Heresy event.
Because everybody likes them traitor rules.
Everyone wants to be the bad guy.
Well, and I think a lot of people are really drawn to like the look of the like, you know, pre-chaos traitor legions. Like, you know, an Emperor's Children army in 30K just looks really cool. And it's not as, like, noisy as the 40K version.
Right.
Well, just the 30K Noise Marines looked better anyway. Cacophony looked cool, man.
Cacophony looked cool, but I will always love those incredibly dumb Noise Marines.
Oh, the second Ed Noise Marines.
There was one of the guys I played at the event had a squad of the second Ed Noise Marines, led by the rogue traitor Slanesh Marine.
Oh man!
I was like, I can't shoot this squad. Like, I couldn't shoot that squad. It was too cool.
Your squad is too cool. I can't even aim at it.
Right.
Or you saw where their kids like college fund went to.
But you know, the event was it was supposed to be 5 rounds. We did like 1 game Friday night, 2 games Saturday, and it was going to be 2 games Sunday. We decided on Sunday to just do a big mega game because they had a giant like Battle of Istvan table. Yeah. So we just set everything up there. One of the GW staff joined in to even out the sides and brought a Warhound Titan with them.
Of course.
So that was
just pull it out of the case, Fred.
That was pretty cool. And it was honestly a really fun event. It's definitely not as intense as the 40K or AOS tournaments.
Right.
I think people are... there's a thing that happens at Horus Heresy. We call it the pictures phase. So after deployment, before you like take all your models off the table, you like take the pictures of everybody's armies.
Of course, yes.
And like everyone did that every game. The armies were so cool to see.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably the biggest difference between, you know, a 40K or a Sigmar event and a Heresy event in my experience is that the armies are painted to a really high standard, and you're going to get a ton of people coming by just to check out like these really good looking armies.
The way I've heard it described is that, you know, 40K is a drag race, whereas Horus Heresy is a car show. So, you know, you're there to like show off your army, and there's also a game here too.
I don't know if car shows. It's more like a parade of yachts.
Depends on the army, honestly.
That's the Titan guys at Adepticon. That's the yacht.
Yeah. Right. They what do they get, like little radio flyers? They do a little parade around the building before.
It's literally they take like this giant amount of space in the ballroom. They have these giant buildings built up,
right?
And people are, and they even have like big size of the Titanicus unit cards, which is great. Like the Warlord one is like 4 feet long or something. It's awesome.
Man, that's a dated joke. I would totally show up with like, you remember the old 2nd edition Dreadnought card?
Oh, the orc one.
Yeah, I brought a Titan, guys, and it's just like a printout card. Like, no, it's fine. But I afford to play with.
But
Titans.
The GW events, they definitely run more like a traditional, like there's rounds and there's a time limit and stuff. We got 4 hours a round. Most games were done in about 2.5 hours, which meant there was time to get food and relax and chill, which made the event so much more enjoyable.
So I guess my last question is, would you go again?
Oh, absolutely. If they run another Heresy event, I'm definitely going to, spend the time and money to go. It was really well done. The GW events team, Zach Rockner, Mike Brandt, did a great job putting it together. I'm really looking forward to when they announce the next one. I'm going to try and get as many people as I can to go.
So we're gonna like caravan it up there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I hope they do the next one in Texas. That would be really nice.
That would be great.
Or Louisiana. I would do it.
I mean, isn't
NOLA?
there a large contingent of Horsey players in Dallas?
Texas has a ton of
they have one of the
players.
biggest communities. So
Where do we play at? Because
Houston, Dallas.
Houston's really big.
Houston of all places,
Yeah.
Houston. Okay.
The DFW area is really big. They're the North Texas Heresy group on Facebook. We're getting pretty up there now too.
We have quite a bit of people here in town in Austin, so it's exciting to see the community grow, and of course, like our style of play, kind of permeate that community.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up here. On behalf of Bowls, we're coming to you from the Bowls basement, and I'm Ryan.
I'm Monji.
And I'm Dan.
Keep rolling those dice.